Hello, so today we will analyze a game by David Bronstein. Now, David Bronstein is playing with the black pieces here against František Zita. Uh, so C4 is played. This is known as the English opening, and David Bronstein plays E5, and this is just a reverse Sicilian. We get knight to C3 here, and we get knight to F6. We get knight to F3, and we get D6 here, transposing into a King's Indian. Why? Just look closely. So d4, knight b d7, g3, and g6. And what do you notice? It's a King's Indian where e5 was already played. Now, usually in the King's Indian, let's say d4, you go knight to f6, c4, this, and like let's say g3 or something. This is the King's Indian setup, and you could go into this transposing into exactly what happens in the game. Here, this is the same structure in a different move order. We get b3 in the game, and here rook e8 is played. We get bishop to b2, c6, e4, e takes d4. Now I won't be explaining too much of the opening since this is in the middle game. Knight takes d4 here, and we have this structure where uh to me it looks like a Maroczy bind, except there's no c pawn, except there's still a c pawn, but uh white has double fianchettoed bishops, and white is a little bit better because they have more space compared to black. As you can see, this bishop has a problem of developing, and because the bishop has a problem of developing, the rook has a problem of developing, while white can just move the queen to the second rank or third rank, somewhere over there, and then just connect the rooks. And here, black decides to play queen to b6, putting the queen there, pressuring the knight. And here, queen to d2 is played. Now, queen to c2 is actually a better move. And you might say, isn't that just a free piece? Nope. There is knight to a4. Knight to a4 uncovering an attack on the queen. And upon closer look, the queen is actually trapped. Why? So the queen can't go to c5 or b6 because the knight is on a4 controlling those squares. And the queen controls the other three squares, the pawn controls that, and the bishop controls these. And this pawn's defended. So the queen is just trapped. So you can't actually take that. Uh so here we queen to d2, still a solid move. And here we get knight to c5, just putting the knight on a better square. Rook e1 is played, and here you can pause to decide which plan to choose. There are a couple of plans here. One plan is to eventually activate this bishop by removing the knight, maybe putting it on e5, putting it on g4, and then here. Or you can develop this bishop to connect the rooks. Now, if you chose either of those plans, it was what was played in the game. Instead, we get a4. I mean a5. a5, sorry. a5, and the idea is to create a weakness here. So, black decides to create a weakness before developing any pieces. Here, their idea is not to only prevent some b4 pushes to kick the knight off, it's also to create a weakness with a4. So let's say you play f4 here. Uh, I don't think it's the best move. Then just a4 here is very strong, and you can't push the pawn. And if you take this pawn, then I just take, 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 and you have a terrible pawn structure here. Uh, wait, no, a3. I can always play queen to a6 here to hit both pawns here, and the bishop I guess can go to maybe go to h3 in the future to trade itself off. Also maybe go to g4 or maybe even e6 here, trying to get white to trade their very strong knight for a terrible bishop. Instead, we get rook to b1, and the idea is now this is a free pawn, right? Because if you take, 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 you can pause the video to solve the problem here. What will white play to win the game? That's knight to f5. There's just knight to f5 in this position. And you might say, isn't that just a free piece? Yeah, but then bishop takes f6. And if you look carefully, let's say queen to c7, just queen to g5 and you're losing. There's nothing to stop queen takes g7 mate. So you have to give up the queen here. Otherwise, if you don't take, they're just threatening this. Let's say you move the queen to c5. They just take the knight on g7, and then they just have an insane bishop over here. And white is just better because of the fact that they have the bishop pair. You don't want this. So, but what black had in mind was after takes, let's say you take, was queen to a5. This is what black was thinking of. Queen to a5 here, offering exchange of queens, and if you take, black is just better here. Even though they're down a pawn, they're about to win back a pawn, and then exploit these garbage pawns here. I- Instead of instead of accepting this pawn sacrifice, white plays bishop to a1 to open up the rook. Now after bishop to a1, we get a takes, and suddenly white has his weakness on b3. It's a backwards pawn, and not only that, black has some very strong pressure here. But now black decides, okay, it's time to activate the bishop, and we go knight to g4, knight to g4 here, and sooner or later, there's going to be a lot of tactics here. Why? Well, we opened up the bishop. The A file is open for potential sacrifices over here, and there's always knight to f2 in the future. And what are you gonna do here as a white? What was played in the game was h3, trying to kick out the knight. But here you can actually pause the video to find the move that just wins. Find the winning plan for black here. Now, if you paused and guessed correctly, or just said the right move, it's rook takes a1, an exchange sacrifice. Why? Well, because black here will be left with a very strong bishop here, pressuring through these three pieces. And what are you gonna do now? You can't stop this bishop here. It's just very strong here. And after this, the next move that Bronstein plays is, again, you can pause the video. Knight takes f2, sacrificing a full knight. Now, after takes, even though white is up a full rook, in this position, there's just knight takes b3 here, and the knight's in a pin. And suddenly, you're gonna lose a lot of material here. And you went from being up a full rook to now being potentially down a rook or an exchange. And if you take with the queen, there's just knight to d3. And the computer just evaluates this as winning. Why? Because we'll take this with check or not. I'd probably take that with check, and then after like king to h2, king here, I would just take the exchange, to be honest. And after like takes, we end up in a position where black is up a pawn and has two bishops advantage here, and like the king is very weak here. So this is just winning. Instead of that, we get rook to e3, idea of blocking off this diagonal over here. And here we get knight takes h3, taking the pawn. Now, if you take, then after takes, you're just losing here because you just gave up your light square defender. Now we have two bishops against one rook and like two extra pawns. Two extra pawns, 4 against 6. Yeah, two extra pawns. Two extra pawns. The bishop pair against a rook. Now, if that isn't winning, then I don't know what is. White doesn't go into that and plays king to h2. But after king to h2, now we just get knight to f2. A brilliant move here, sacrificing the knight. But if you take, then after takes, the bishop is just insane here. Uh, Pinning the rook to the queen here. Also, pinning the knight to the other rook. And black is just gonna win a lot of material here. Minimum the exchange. We get rook to f3 instead. And here we get knight c takes e4, a key move. Yeah, you can take with this knight, but knight c takes e4 is better because it opens up the queen. After that, we get queen to f4 here. In the future, going to the f7 square, taking f7. And after that, we just get knight to g4, saving the knight here. And after king to h1, we just get f5 here. f5 just defending both knights here with the pawn. Now, white takes this, and we get rook takes. And suddenly, after being down an exchange, and then being down a full rook, black is suddenly up 3 pawns. And this king is incredibly weak. And this is just completely winning here. I mean, one plan. Wait, no, not three. I mean, a piece and 2 pawns. Yeah. Oh, wait, it's a 2 pawn advantage. Now, one of the plans here is probably just to push these pawns over here and create an attack. The king's weak, and this is weak. That rook is hanging, and here we just get rook a8 here. Um, White trying to make some counterplay along this eighth rank. Well, we just get bishop to e5, kicking the queen out of there. And after queen to a7 here, black notices that their king is very weak, so just plays queen to b4 here. And this actually has 2 plans. Now the first plan is very noticeable, and that is queen goes to e1 here, and then the rook comes in, rook d1, and then how do you stop this if the knight wasn't here? This rook comes in, and then like I don't know, just bishop takes, I guess. So yeah, that is one of the plans to attack along the first rank. White plays queen to a2 with an idea. After here, bishop to f1, uh, rook d1. There's queen to g2, but even then, this is still winning. But black decides that to play queen to f8. That is the second idea of this move. Idea being going to h6, and after bishop to h3, we get queen to h6, and white just resigns. Why? Because if we go king to h2 here to defend the bishop, we just have rook d2 check, and you're losing the queen here because if you take, then queen takes, and this is just completely winning. And if you go queen to g2, then we'll give a check, rook here, and then rook goes to d2 here, and you cannot defend this. You cannot defend this bishop. This is just completely winning here. Uh, and then like yeah, like let's say you go here, we just take, and you're getting mated. So definitely a nice game there. All It all started from knight to g4 here, opening up the bishop for a lot of potential tactics here, and then white plays h3, and then rook takes a1 here, just a brilliant sacrifice. And if you take, knight takes, and black just had a better position. And that is the end of the video, and bye.